Hey everyone, sorry I'm not there with you today. I'm not feeling too well. So I decided I would just lead the class through a video today. The way this is going to work is I'll explain some stuff and then you'll do some problems on that sheet that I think whoever's teaching you right now already passed out. It should look not like this one. This is the next one. Should look like this one. Should say find the circumference of each circle. You'll do some problems on that, and then I'll talk and explain for a little while longer, show you some right answers, then you do some more problems, and we'll kind of do that a few times back and forth, and then at the end, whoever's with you will show one last video. So during your work time, it'll be obvious when it's your work time because I'll have this timer on the screen showing you how much time you have to work. Please support each other. Obviously you can talk to each other. Since I'm not there in the room, I really need those people who find this easy or remember how to do this from 6th grade to help those other people and look for the mistakes that I would be looking for if I was there in the room with you and help them correct those, and I'll tell you what those mistakes are. But if you're super bored and this is way too easy for you and the people at your table are doing fine, then there's also some challenge work right here at the bottom of the screen, like here, here, and here, that you could use to pass the time. If you finish any of them, you can put your name on them and put them in the homework bin that's, let's see if I can do this. If you're watching this, then it should be right about there, next to that blue tub where I keep all the binder clips. Yeah, there's the problem of the month, which can still get you into the next prom party if you do that. It's about circles. There's a couple of sheets that say Olympiad on them. They're Math Olympiad questions. And then there's one that's sort of like some logic puzzle stuff. If you choose to do any of that stuff, please do just like one of them. Don't grab all of them because then there won't be enough for people throughout the day. Okay, so let's review some of the things that I said last week that I expect you to know or remember from Pi Week. And those things are, the first is that this symbol right here is the, this desk is kind of shaky. See if I can keep it from doing that. Is the only way to represent pi. Meaning that any other way we use pi, like for calculations, like 3.14 or 22/7, those are all approximations. And so there's actually a symbol that I need you to know for this that I forgot to say last week. There's this like sort of squiggly equal sign, sort of looks like that. And we use that to mean approximately equal. And so I'll try to remember, sometimes I get lazy or I just forget, but anytime you calculate something with 3.14 or 22/7 in place of pi itself, you're supposed to use a little squiggly equal sign instead of a regular equal sign since it's approximate. The next thing I wanted you to know is that pi is always the ratio between the circumference and the diameter in any circle, meaning that's kind of how we found this magical number, is that we started taking the circumferences of circles, dividing them by their diameters, and we always got this number 3 point whatever every time. And then we used our equation skills that we've been practicing to multiply both sides of this equation by d, and that's how we derived the formula for the circumference of the circle. We got d times pi, or pi times d is actually how people usually write it, equals c for the circumference. This is circumference. These are all things that should be reviewed. And so the circumference of a circle, that's how far it is around the outside. Circumference. And the diameter, that's how far it is across. So that's another thing that I said you needed to know from Pi Week, or that you should remember from 6th grade. And the radius, well, that's the distance from the center of the circle to the outside. And it should be fairly obvious that double the radius is equal to the diameter, or in other words, the radius is half of the diameter. And that actually comes up, well, you know what, let's talk about why that's a little bit important later. I want to show you one thing that's in your book that we didn't get a chance to really look at, but it's just like sort of a diagram that they use to illustrate this idea that the circumference of a circle, which they sort of outlined in like this rope sort of pattern around the outside of this circle here that I'm just outlining in purple right now. If you were to somehow like flatten this out so that it was just a line, then it would go across the circle that it came from 3 whole times, and then a little bit more, a little bit extra there at the end. And in fact, it goes exactly pi times across. So that's one way to think about how 3.14 whatever pi diameters is equal to 1 circumference of a circle. And so that's what I want you to practice first. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do just the first 5 questions on this sheet that has already been passed out to you. This is the wrong one. This is the one that says area. I'll get the right one up by the time you're done working. But if that's way too much time for you, then please make sure the people around you are doing well. Make sure that they're not accidentally multiplying by the radius or something strange like that. And then also you have that challenge work to work with if you want. All right, 5 minutes. You only need to do the first 5 in those 5 minutes. All right, so I'd like your attention back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so hopefully those weren't too hard for you. Let's do them real quick. I just realized I wasn't very clear about something. Yeah, you can use 3.14 for pi. You can also use 22/7, or you can just use the pi symbol to represent the circumference or area that we're going to calculate later exactly. In fact, I'd like you to do a mix of those. Please don't do all of them the same. Do some with 3.14, do some exactly with the pi symbol, and I'll show you different ways to do that here. So, for example, this first one, the diameter is 20. So, let's say I was going to do this one with the fraction 22/7. I could do 20 times 22/7. Well, let's see here. 20 times 20 is 400. Throw on another 2, so that's 440. So 447 yards. Let's put units on our answers. All right, this one here, 10.6. Let's do it with 3.14. That's probably the most common way. I'll probably most likely ask you to do it that way most of the time. So 10.6 times 3.14. I got a calculator right here. 10.6 times 3.14. 33.284. It says to round to the nearest tenth, so let's go 33.3 yards. All right, next one, I'll do another 3.4. So this should have been 11.6 times 3.14, and that's, where's the clear button? There it is. 11.6 times 3.14, 36.4. And let's see here, this one should be 26 times 3.14. And that's 81.64. We'll just go 81.6. I forgot units on the last one. That should be yards. And this one should be yards. And then lastly, I'm going to do this one exactly. I'm just going to do pi times the diameter this way with the pi symbol. So this would be the exact diameter. And then I can still put centimeters on the end of that. All right, so notice the next 5. They're a little different because they give you the radius rather than the diameter. That's not a big deal. You should know that you can just double the radius to get the diameter. But I want you to see something else about it too. Let me find that one paper that I was kind of already writing on. Here it is. So since the radius is half of the diameter, or in other words, 2 times the radius equals the diameter, lots of times you see the formula for the circumference written like this. C equals 2 times pi times r. So it's really 2 times the r to get the diameter, and then times pi. It's the same formula, pi times the diameter, but this would be that formula in terms of r, meaning that it has an r in it rather than a d for diameter. All right, so when you go to calculate the next 5, you can just do pi times the diameter by figuring out the diameter first and then multiplying by pi, or you can do 2 times pi times the radius, whatever works for you. You should be getting a little better at these, so I'm just going to give you 4 minutes this time. Go. All right, so hopefully you got those done in that time. I'll wait for people to quiet down. All right, so before we go any further, I want you to write the formulas up here at the top of this paper. So you should have C equals pi times the diameter, or C equals 2 times pi times the radius up at the top. And at the end of this period, I want you to keep these papers so that you have examples of how to do these and some papers with the formulas on them. I want you to notice a couple things. When I do these questions, I'm always writing what I'm multiplying by to get the answer. If you're just writing answers, please don't do that, especially not on a quiz. I want to see what numbers you're multiplying by what. I understand that this is probably kind of easy for some people, and so you might not need the whole 4 or 5 minutes I'm giving you. If that's the case, then I hope that you're helping the people around you or working on that challenge work that's at the front of the classroom. You should not be distracting other people or making a bunch of noise while other people are trying to work. All right, so this first one is 12.8 radius. So what I need to do is 2 times 12.8 times 3.14. And so that is, let's see here, 2 times 12.8 times 3.14. And I get a diameter of about 80.4, sorry, 80.4 yards. All right, the next one, I would do 2 times 7.2 times pi. I'll do this one the exact way. When we use the pi symbol, we call it exact. And so that's 14.4 pi. This next one, so I'll just do the 2 times 3.7 in my head. That's 7.4. So I need to do 7.4 times 3.14. So let's see here, we should have got 7.4 times 3.14. 23.23, we'll round that down, 23.2, and that's inches, and I forgot my meters on the last one. All right, number 9, we have 13.6 times 2 times 3.14, and so that is 85.4 centimeters. And the last one, 9. So I can multiply that by 2. Sorry, I'm off the screen a little bit. So that's 18. And let's do this one with the fraction, times 22 sevenths. Notice I already multiplied the 9 by the 2 to get the 18. And so I can just do 18 times 22. That's 396. So this is 396 sevenths feet in circumference. You could just leave answers in improper fractions like that. I'm sure that simplifies a lot, but that's fine. I don't care too much about that. All right, so let's talk now about area. So the area of a circle, the formula we need for that is A equals pi times the radius squared. So the circumference formula, the way you usually see it, pi times diameter, that one's more reliant on diameter. Area is more reliant on the radius. And so there's lots of different ways to think about why the area of a circle is pi times its radius squared. I've seen a few different ways. This is the way that I like the most. So right here, from the center of the circle to the outside is a radius. And from the center to the outside down here is also a radius. So if I were to continue this, I could make a square, and that's a radius squared. That's what this is. This space right here is an r squared. And I could make 4 of these in this circle. So I could start from the center and go to here, and then make a box out of that as well. And now this green area is an r squared. And I can make one up in the top right quadrant of this circle. So there's a radius. This line that's already here is a radius. So I can make a box out of those. And this area that I just did in purple is also an r squared. And then I'll use black for the last one. I can make a last r squared box right here. And you see that the circle almost fills up all 4 boxes that are r squared in size, but not quite, right? Well, actually, it turns out that it's filling up just over 3 of the boxes, or 3.14159 blah, blah, blah boxes out of the 4, right? And so that's where you get your pi r squared boxes. A couple other things I want you to remember is that since we're finding a 2-dimensional unit of measurement here, that's usually what you get when you square something, our units need to be squared too, right? Like if this radius was in inches, then our unit of measurement now is inches squared. Or if the radius was in feet, then our unit of measurement now is feet squared. So when you're writing units of measurement, whatever number up here goes above the unit sort of indicates how many dimensions you're working in, right? But if you write just centimeters, and then there's no number, no degree of this, maybe an invisible 1, that's a 1-dimensional unit of measurement, right? Like a straight line. When you've got a 2 up here, you're talking about a 2-dimensional unit of measurement, like a box. So like if we were to take this cm and make it centimeters squared, kind of messed that up, but now this is centimeters squared, and we're working in 2 dimensions, right? And then later, when we talk about volume, we'll look at 3 dimensions. All right, so now, hopefully while I was talking then, the substitute or Mr. Turner or whoever you're working with was passing out this sheet that says area. Find the area of each circle. I want you to write A equals pi r squared across the top. If you haven't got it already, maybe you can pause the video for a second and pass it out. And then once you've got it, I want you to have about, let's see here, how much time we got? Now let's go with 5 minutes the first time, and then we'll do 4 minutes the second time. So 5 minutes to do the first 5 area questions on here. Do some of them with 3.14, some maybe one with the fraction, maybe one with the exact. All right, so I'd like your attention back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So while you guys were working, I did a few of them. I want you to compare some of the answers you got to the ones that I got. On number 1, I did it all 3 ways. I did the exact way. It should be 9 pi yards squared. Or I did it with 3.14, so you should have got 28 point, I guess I could have rounded that to 3, 28.3 yards squared. Notice I'm putting the units on and I'm squaring the yards because we're talking about area now. And the fractional way, I got 198 over 7 yards squared. For the next 2, I just did them as decimals, and I got 265.8 inches squared for number 2. And for number 3, I got 589.3 centimeters squared. And then number 4, I just did it the exact way. I got 14 squared pi feet squared. If you're getting different answers than me, let's talk about the most common reasons why that happens. So I'm going to do number 5 incorrectly a few different ways that I see a lot. The first way I see a lot is that when students want to do pi times the radius squared, they like to accidentally multiply pi times the radius. And so in this case, 3.14 times 7.5, let's see here. 3.14 times 7.5. That would be 23.55. And then they square that number. So 23.55. And then they would square that. They would say, okay, now I'm supposed to square, so let me go times 23.55. And they get 554.6. That would be the incorrect way to do this. And the reason for that is in the formula. Let's look at it up here. The r squared, squaring a number, that's an exponent. And when you think about the order of operations, PEMDAS, this right here means exponents, and that has to come before multiplication when you're calculating anything out. So you should be squaring the radius first, not multiplying by pi first. That's the most common mistake. So I almost think it's better if you say the formula is r squared pi, because that really emphasizes the fact that you gotta square the radius first. Here's another way I would see people do this same one incorrectly. They would say, okay, I'm supposed to square 7.5. So that means to go times 2. So I'll do 2 times 7.5, which equals 15. And then they would do 15 times pi, whatever that is. I'm not going to bother right now. Please make sure that you remember that squaring a number means to multiply it by itself, not multiply it by 2. That's a super common mistake. In fact, I bet as long as you're not making one of those 2 mistakes, you're probably getting the same answers as me. All right, so these next ones, you've got the diameter in the following 5 instead of the radius. And you've got to divide that diameter by 2 before you can use the formula. Look what happens if you accidentally use the diameter instead. If you accidentally do pi times the diameter squared, well, that's the same as pi times 2r squared, right? Since the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. And so what you wind up doing is pi times 2r times 2r, because I'm just multiplying 2r by itself. And you get pi times 4, the 2 times 2, r squared. And so you get this 4 that you don't want, because the formula is actually area equals pi r squared. So your answer will turn out 4 times too big if you accidentally do that. So if you're ever doing these, and you notice that your answer is like 4 times bigger than it should be, I bet you use the diameter than the radius on accident. So for the next 5, divide that diameter by 2 before you do the area formula, please. You should be a little faster now, so I'm going to give you 4 minutes. Okay, so there's your 4 minutes. 5 minutes is up. 4 minutes. It was 4 minutes. So I've got the answers to numbers 6, 7, and 8 here circled in pink. I did these two as decimals and this one the exact way. And I'm going to do the last two for you right now. I'll do number 9 as a fraction. So I see the diameter is 20, so the radius is 20 divided by 2, which equals 10. And then I need to do 10 squared. I always do that first, do my squaring first, and it's not 2 times 10, it's 10 times 10, which is 100. And now I'm going to multiply that by pi, which I'll use the 22/7 version of pi this time. And so to multiply 22 by 100, that just means I put 2 zeros on the end of it, so I get 2200 over 7 miles squared. That's a humongous circle. It's like 300 miles squared. That's huge, like the size of a state or a county probably. All right, and then this one, the diameter is 14, so the radius equals 14 over 2, which equals 7. And so we need to do 7 squared. We always do our squaring first. And I can do that one in my head, that's 49. And so this time I'll use a decimal. I'll do 49 times 3.14. And I need a calculator to help me out with that one. Let's see here, 49 times 3.14. 153.86. We can round it to 153.9 yards squared. All right, so remember that I said that the whole reason we're practicing this circle stuff is so that we can start working with cylinders next and their volume and their surface area. And so next you're going to watch about a 4-minute video in the last couple minutes of class about the volume of a cylinder. It's kind of a cringy, corny video, but what would middle school be without a nice helping of cringe? All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.